Before tariffs became the main character of the stock market, I would say most of us had a plan. We knew what stocks to invest in, and the market was up, especially in 2024 and the first part of 2025, especially through January. But then things changed. And by the time you're watching this video, the stock market is down anywhere between 7 to probably even 10%. And again, the market is moving and changing at the time that I am doing this recording. Things aren't great, and we are done with the first quarter. We are done with tax time, and that was quite painful, at least for me. But what should we do now? Is this a time to make some major changes, some minor changes, or no changes at all? What should we do as investors? That is what I'm here to answer. Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, I am not in my normal uniform. I got to catch a flight, so that's not what I wear outside. I mean, maybe I should more often. I don't know, but I need to be more comfortable on the plane. It's hot outside, so I don't. Whatever. Okay, we're gonna get right into it. So I've got about 4 things that you want to consider doing, and then I'm gonna give you the pros and the cons of each of these as we go through. So the main thing that most people instinctually want to go to is, let me move to cash, let me sell everything, because I want to try to avoid all losses. That is what people go to. Now, I understand that concern. I get it. History says that's not always the best thing, but there is a little gray area there. Now, depending on where you are selling from, it is okay to move some money to cash. But I want you to be aware here. I do not think, unless there is an extreme emergency, that you should take your whole 401k and liquidate it all and go to a government bond fund. That is extreme, especially if you've got 10, 15, 20 years away from retirement. Again, that is very extreme. I don't think we are in that dire of a situation. It might feel like it. I know how the headlines are written. People are very good, and so is AI, good at writing those headlines. I don't think we are near that scenario. However, it could make sense if you've got an outside brokerage account, something that's not a retirement account, and you sell a little bit of that and put that into a money market fund or put that into a high yield savings that's paying 4% right now. That actually might make some sense. That is a move that I was forced into making. We'll talk about why in a separate video, but that might make some sense. There is a case to be made that if you already have some cash ready, just in case, you might want to put just a little bit more. Not out of necessarily fear of things falling apart, but we have something else that could be around the corner. If we are moving into a recession, if the job market is a bit shaky and you need additional cash, you might want to have that, on hand. The other part of this is you want to be aware of any tax implications. Now, be careful here, okay? Notice I never said from a retirement account. Okay, if you take that, if you sell and you withdraw and you say, I don't want to just sell from my 401k, I want to take it out and put it in my hand and take it and put it in my savings, and you are under 59 and a half, the IRS is going to come calling. They could charge you a 10% penalty, and you could be paying income taxes. I would not want that for you. Talk to your advisor, talk to your accountant if you plan on doing that. That is not, that's not where I would go. That's why if you have it, we're talking like your outside brokerage account, okay? The stuff that we talk about when we were investing on Cash App and things like that, that might make more sense to sell a little bit there if you feel you need to, or if you feel you don't have enough cash on hand and you are a little worried about what is going on in the market and do I have enough cash if things get a little rocky. That might make more sense, and taking that and putting it in a high yield savings might make more sense, and that can give you a bit more stability. So I want to be more clear in that capacity. Now, with that, cash does have risk, and I think that is the thing that people don't always think about, and especially cash has more risk than you think about in this particular arena in 2025. Why is the market down? The market is down because of tariffs. What do tariffs do? Yes, they make the price of stuff higher, but when you zoom out, that is essentially what? Inflation. Cash is not good against inflation. We have known this for decades. And right now, a money market account today, and this does change, is paying somewhere around 4%, a good one. And that's a tasty amount. All right, in my lifetime, that's a tasty amount. Now, in the 80s, things were weird. But paying 4% is great. But I've also lived at a time which this was like 3 years ago where inflation was 9%. So if we keep these tariffs, especially on China, which is, I don't know, 200% or 100%, whatever in the world it is today, and inflation starts to creep up and you are only getting paid 4%, that cash is not going to be worth what we thought it was. Now, the argument could be, well, it's certainly not going to be certainly not going to be worth what it was if the market is also down 10%. And hey, you would be right. Okay, that is absolutely true. So you could be losing on both sides, and at least you are losing less and losing it slower if that is the case. And it is a true paper loss because you don't have to spend it in that case, in the case of tariffs. But don't forget too that with this whole tariff situation, it continues to fluctuate every other day, every other week. We have the tariffs, we don't have the tariffs, and there are ways to, I won't say avoid the tariffs, but there are some ways that you as a consumer might be able to get around it. There are some purchases that you may be able to delay or avoid. Like, for example, we know we're going to have some tariffs on avocados. I just don't eat avocados. I don't know if that is something you can judge me for. They just don't taste good to me, right? But now I can't avoid every single thing out there. But there are items that may be more expensive due to tariffs that I can just go buy used on eBay for a much cheaper price, or get on Etsy for a much cheaper price. And that is one way that you can make your money last longer to stave off inflation to a degree. So you might have to work a little harder as a consumer to make that money last longer to kind of combat what could be some major inflation down the line. Now, we don't know how long inflation may last or how extreme it may be, because again, today the tariffs are on, tomorrow they could be off. But it might make sense to move some money to cash. How you do it, completely up to you. Also, if you do sell from one of those brokerage accounts, there may be a tax hit for that could come next year because this tax season is already over. You absolutely want to talk to your accountant about that. The good thing is if you are selling, and air quotes for those who could be listening to it and not watching, is that if you're selling from a stock that is losing money, that could be more beneficial for you. So pay attention there, okay? But you do want to consult an advisor or your accountant for the tax part of it. A tax expert, I am not. All right. Another thing that you do want to do, and this is something that's just boilerplate, standard, can always stay focused on the long term. I know it's rough now. It might be rough through next year for all I know, right? But still, the way I'm looking at it is I'm still focused on what am I doing now in 2025 that's going to help me the best in 2030. We have seen, and it's not confirmed that we are in a recession now. However, nobody here is going to be shocked if that is going to be the case when and if the National Bureau of Economic Research comes out and says in July, hey, recession confirmed. Okay, no one is going to be shocked if that happens. However, just like we did in 2020, I am richer today because of what I did in 2020. And that was just basic, continuously investing, dollar cost averaging, and holding the investments that I had back then. That is why my wealth increased. That's the biggest reason why my wealth increased. So what can I do now? Continue to hold, continue to make good decisions in 2025, even though the market is down, to set me up in 2030. So I'm still keeping that long-term focus, even though in 2020, stuff was bad. It was real bad. And I could go back even further than that. In 2015, things weren't as bad as this, right? But I had to make good, smart decisions in 2015 to get to where I was in 2020. And that is the case throughout life in general. I'm not going to go into a whole life spiel. However, the important thing is you really want to consider your finances in these 5-year chunks. I think what happens is a lot of people don't really think about this stuff until things get bad and things start to crash, where people start to really panic. When in reality, we should always have been thinking about, 5-year chunks, 10-year chunks. Like, people say you should always think in decades and not days, especially when it comes to money, because it's true. You guys have heard me say this before, and I definitely said it in 2020 a lot. 10 years from now, you're going to wish you started 10 years ago. And with money, that is true. Even if you are investing $20, $30, $40, $50 a week, or even a month, it adds up, but it only adds up if you started yesterday or 10 years ago. This is that time. So what are the tiny habits and the tiny things, or the behaviors, more importantly, that you can do now that are going to set you up for the next 5 years, and that could be in discounting or deleting notifications and things that could trigger you and force you or bias you towards making some moves that you probably should not be making. Now, this one I think is very important because I'm not seeing it. Maybe I'm not seeing it on my timeline. I get notifications in two cases right now. Either the market is down, it has hit a new historic low, everything is bad, and then every now and then the market is up. Greatest day since 2020, greatest day since whenever. Okay. What I'm not seeing, and I have to go and research and find it myself, is what areas of the stock market are good right now. Because every time, let me not say every time, most of the time, when there is something wrong with the stock market, when there is something wrong with the economy, it's not that everything is bad. It's usually things are drastically shifting. And when these shifts happen, just like it does on a chessboard or a football game or whatever, an advantage is going to be had, and there are some wins, but only for the people who see it. For example, there was a video that we did, I reposted it on Instagram. It was 23 weeks ago. So was that almost 6 months ago? I guess 6-ish months, five months and whatever. In either case though, we did a video and we had talked about how I thought Netflix, this is way back then, before the election, I said Netflix was inflation and election proof, right? Putting that in air quotes. And Netflix this year, right at the time I'm doing this, Netflix was up, as of yesterday, up almost 10% this year, despite all the stuff that's happening. Ta-da, right? Like, things are occurring. Also, just because the market can be rough or there may be a recession doesn't mean that the entire stock market is going to be down. 1981, the market was up, there was a recession. 1990, the market was up, there was a recession. In the past 5 recessions, for example, Walmart has been up 40% on average. There may be opportunities. So it may not be, oh my God, I have to sell everything. It could just be, hey, let me just move my money around from some of the things that aren't doing well to the things that are doing well. And instead of being super charged and super worried and super concerned, isn't that what we do all the time? But that's what I do. That's what we talk about here. Every June. Is that not what we talk about? Where I just say, I get rid of the stocks that don't do well and we go get the stocks that do well. Why wouldn't I do that now? And there are stocks that are doing well. We did a whole video on that exact thing. So why would we not do that at whatever time your schedule is? Now, my schedule is mine. You do that however you want to do it. But it doesn't have to be sell and go to the farm and everybody just go crazy. It could just be, well, all right, this isn't doing well. What is? And just go there. Right? That's an option. That's definitely on the table. So we don't always have to panic. We can just go to what's working right now. The majority of the stock market might not be doing well. It may only be 10 stocks. That's good. That don't mean you can't go there. All right. So don't always panic. There may be a lifeboat that you might want to use as opposed to just trying to swim it out. All right. So keep these things in mind. Maybe we are going to go into a recession, maybe not. This does not guarantee by the end of the year that the stock market is going to be down. And again, I've said it often, it's also happened in 2020. We did have a recession, we did have a pandemic, the market was up double digits. Is that going to happen in 2025? I don't know. I didn't think it was going to happen in 2020, but I'm willing to be a long-term investor and wait and see. Does it make sense for you to move some money in cash? The answer could be yes. It absolutely could be. The biggest question is, how much do you move to cash and from where? I think the where part, really the how much and the where, is really important. From your retirement account, probably not, but from your brokerage account, okay, that might make more sense depending on how much and what that tax liability could be. If you have enough cash, it's going to last you 6 months. It might not matter at all. Okay. And then also, what are you moving it to? And then what do we think inflation is going to be? And then the last part is you are supposed to, right, make those adjustments to your portfolio every 6 months, or most people do it annually. There just may be other parts of the market that are doing well. Why don't we just make those shifts? Now, again, some people do it quarterly. I do it biannually, it's twice a year. You can just do that, right? We've talked about the stocks I've made the most money on so far in this quarter, or last quarter rather, at this point, and then the ones I've lost money on. Some of those were good. You could check out some of those, research them, and see if they fit for you. So those options are out there. If you want to know what those stocks are and research them further, you can check out this video right here.